Welcome back, Witchers. This is the Witcher Lorecast, and this is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I am here, as usual, with my good buddy, Toasty McToasterface. How was that one?
Someone new? I feel like it's a reusage.
Miss McToasterface? I don't think I've included your face on any of these.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, how you doing, buddy?
You know, I've been watching a lot of Witcher.
Yeah, man. I recapped on these two episodes, and I'm not a big go back and watch a thing kind of guy. I'm a big pay lots of attention the first time kind of guy and just soak it all in. You know, I'm the kind of person who tries to catch all the details on the first viewing, unless it's like a really super dense movie, and then I feel like it's worth watching a second time or show. But I enjoyed going back and watching these episodes. And that's what this episode is about, by the way. We're getting ready for season 2 of the Witcher series on Netflix. So in the upcoming episodes until then, we will be recapping all of the season 1 episodes. And so for this episode right now, we are recapping episodes 1 and 2, and we're going to squeeze them in as best as we can because we're running out of time because season 2 is coming. It's coming in fast and hot.
I think it's 5 weeks.
5 weeks. 5 weeks. So that's what we got here. And man, it was good going down memory lane. What'd you think, Toasty?
I think I caught some details that I hadn't caught before.
Yeah, you know, most of it I remembered, but there were definitely things that I in retrospect saw differently, and having since now done this podcast for a while and being a little bit more immersed in the world, kind of viewed differently. I think I don't know, saw from a different angle.
Okay.
Which I think is interesting. You know, it's always good to be a little bit more educated and go back and rewatch or reread something, because you always do kind of see things from a different angle. So tell you what, let's just dive in. We're starting with episode 1, The End's Beginning.
It's beginning.
The End's Beginning.
Cool name.
Yeah. So how does this start?
So we start in a nice little kind of atmospheric environment. This gray, dark swamp, very absent of color. And it's just a deer trying to get a drink from the water.
Of course, nothing terrible is going to happen.
Nothing terrible is going to happen. I wouldn't recommend for that deer to drink from that water, because in the next few seconds, we get an eruption of monster and Witcher.
Yes.
Say Kikimora erupts out of the water with Geralt fighting. So we see a cool little action sequence there with, Geralt fighting, Kikimora's trying to drown him, and Geralt slays the Kikimora with a nice little close up on his face. We get to see the first effect of how, the WCU does their Witcher potion effects with the black eyes and the black veins kind of coming around them. Yeah.
WC dub, meaning the Witcher cinematic universe. WCU. Dub-CU, I guess we just say
Dub-CU.
The Dub-CU, meaning Witcher
Dub-CU.
Cinematic Universe. Yeah. And this is a wonderful synopsic scene. Synoptical scene. There's not a word for that, is there? This scene is a synopsis that really shows us, one, the potent power of a Witcher being able to take on a monster like this. Two, the fact that the Witcher uses potions and other means to buff themselves and make them more powerful. 3, the fact that they aren't just fierce monsters and killers, because you can see that he does have some compassion for the deer when he looks at the deer at the end and says, not your day, huh? And then decides to kill the deer, put it out of its misery, and then use the deer and eat it. He doesn't let the deer's body go to waste. Like any good hunter, he eats the deer and it respectfully consumes the body of the deer and uses the deer for sustenance. He doesn't just, throw out the deer's corpse or something like that. Right. So it gives us an insight into the character and the nature of who a Witcher is right there in the beginning opening scene, very concisely. And I think that's a really cool way they did it.
So after that, we get Geralt walking into like a tavern, bar, whatever word you would like to use. and we get kind of the first look at how people treat Witchers in the Witcher universe, because he's just asking for directions to the Alderman's house so that he can try and claim the reward on the Kikimora. And the bartender, there's like a young female bartender who's, trying to give out the answer. And then the older head bartender comes over and snaps at her and says, we don't want your kind here, Witcher. You need to get out. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and he's just trying to get directions
right
to where to go. And once he does, he'll be out of their hair. And then we get a little gang of thugs in the background getting up, telling him he needs to leave as well. So, people don't like Witchers. He all he's trying to do is get some directions, and they're treating him like crap.
Yeah. And you can tell his whole mood that whole time when walking through is very guarded. He's very careful around other people. He's very careful to only go up and talk to the bartender, to go and ask exactly for what he needs. He avoids eye contact with other people, and he's just there to do his business and get out. He knows that he's not going to get a positive reception, and of course that's what he does. That he doesn't get it, right?
Right. But, there's that tension there. It looks like some guys are trying to start some trouble. They're trying to fight Geralt, and until, this young lady at the end of the bar, just trying to enjoy her breakfast. She basically tells the guys, who we find out are her men, to cut their shit
right,
and leave them alone.
Right.
And then starts bossing around the bartender of like, I want to order 2 beers and I expect you to serve me, knowing full well that like one of those beers is for Geralt. So she's actually being nice and kind to him, which is a really rare instance for Witchers. So
yeah. So he of course takes the beer. There's, like you have here in the note, there's some sexual tension there. She's clearly in control of the situation because she seems to have the coin to be in control of the situation and the respect of some of these thugs. And the situation moves on, right? And then we have Geralt, who gets the information he needs, and he's moving on and runs into, this young girl comes into the bar, right?
He comes into the bar, interrupts the sexual tension,
right? And says, "Hey, you've got this monster on your thing. I know somebody who could."
My dad's the alderman. That's
what she says. Yes,
she's the daughter of the alderman. So. She leads him out, is walking. She tells him, where, like, we don't, the bounty was on a Grevier, not a Kikimora. Kikimoras are good for population control. So like my dad's not going to pay you for the Kikimora, but the wizard in town, he might be interested in paying because wizards use, monsters for different kinds of things.
Like parts of stuff for potions and concoctions and study and all sorts of things. And if we go through all the details at this level, we're going to be here for 3 hours. So
that is true.
So the connection is with Marilka is the girl's name.
That's the girl's name.
Very chatty. She seems to be very interested in him.
I never paid attention to her what she's saying, really, though.
And she's got a very thick accent.
Yeah, I didn't really catch what she's saying. She's talking about how she like murdered the family dog.
Yes, she killed the dog. She wants to leave town. She
It's like this is a sadistic little girl. What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, my name's like Milk. Yeah, she's yapping his ear off.
Shut up. Geralt's just going through it, just like, okay.
He's just like, oh my god, just take me to the freaking place I need to go. Okay, thank you.
So he finally responds with my name. My name's Geralt. They get to the wizard tower, fancy door. It's not actually a door. He just kind of like walks in through the door, doesn't even open it.
So the big important thing here is that there is a wizard who lives here, but it's not the wizard who the tower is named after. It's this guy Stregobor, who is very important to the series. Very powerful wizard, very influential wizard, and he's hiding out in this tower. Among a illusion of all these naked women
with this garden,
with this garden
stuff.
Right.
And even says, it's just to make the time pass easier or something.
Right.
It's like,
which, well, of course it is. Yeah. Obviously, the time's going to pass easier if you're surrounding yourself by beautiful, attractive naked people, right? So, but Geralt, of course, ferrets out the truth because Geralt's no dummy. He's very smart, and he sees through people pretty well. And
Stregobor wants Geralt to kill Renfri.
Right. And
the individual, the young lady that we met at the bar.
Right. And the trick here is that Stregobor is trying to convince Geralt that the crux of the whole thing is that there was a
curse. It was an eclipse.
It was an eclipse, and there was a curse and the
girls that were born
rhyming
during the eclipse. It didn't rhyme, so it was really bad.
Right.
Obviously, it's not true, but
right. And Stregobor, among others, basically hunted down all of these girls, killed them, and then studied their remains to find out that they were mutated. And Renfri was the one that got away. And it turns out
the remaining one, and she wants to kill him because
he did horrible things.
He did horrible things. He tried to kill her.
Right.
And she wants revenge.
Right. Right. So it's a chicken and an egg thing. Is she terrible because he did horrible things, or is she terrible because was born under this black sun and she was just born terrible? Like, which one is it? And Geralt says, well, I'm just not going to do evil things. When I have to choose between the lesser of two evils, I'm just not going to choose. That's my choice.
It's a very big part there with choosing the lesser evil. Geralt believes that it doesn't matter what level of evil it is. It's evil.
Right.
I don't want to pick between either.
Right. And that is a big thing for the whole series. Right. So,
and then we transfer to a different scene entirely, with a banquet in this grand hall, with Queen Calanthe, Princess Cirilla, and then Queen Calanthe's husband. Right. They're having a party. They're talking about wartime with Nilfgaard and talking about how basically Nilfgaard's not going to come this way. It's not strategic to come, here. They're going to go somewhere else.
Right. And the whole thing with Ciri here is that we get to see her being a kid playing with some other kids, but then getting pulled back into her life as a princess. Basically,
she's got duties. She's got
her duties
that she has to uphold.
Right, and you get to see like the interplay between her wanting to be something that she's not, and yet having to go through the duties, and then you get to see that, oh no, the kingdom's actually in danger, and then it kind of moves on from there, and we get a sense of like how powerful her grandmother is and who these other characters are, and that's kind of the gist of that scene, right? That's pretty much what we get out of it.
Calanthe telling Ciri, not to worry about these things because she's young, and Ciri's like, but you were fighting battles at my age. You won your first battle when you were my age,
right? Which
ties into the next scene as we cut back to Geralt looking for herbs, and Renfri comes looking for him, and they have a conversation about Renfri's story. She was the man that was supposed to kill her, just raped her and left her in the woods.
It's terrible things. So therefore, it's justified that she was angry and sought out her killers for revenge, right? Wouldn't you be angry too?
And she's telling Geralt, I'm going to get my revenge unless you want to kill him for me, in which case you can do the lesser evil, which comes back. And he's just like, this BS again.
Right. And he gives her basically an ultimatum. He says, listen, you can leave now, let it be, because revenge isn't going to make anything better. Let it go, move on with the rest of your life, and live a good life and do the best you can. Or you cannot leave just go through with it, and you're probably going to regret it. Is basically
pretty much. And we find out here in this scene that this is happening. This timeline with Geralt and Renfri is happening during Calanthe's childhood, because they talk about how she just won her first battle at, whatever location. So, and they have a talk. Geralt does one of his big principles of, I don't want to be what people think I am. So I'm not going to do these horrible things, because if I did, I would be the evil creature that people say I am, which Geralt has a lot of principles. It's a tie into his character as well.
Right. And again, sets the scene for like, I will not be the monster they think I am, which is a core to the series.
Yep. So then we cut back to Sintra. Two armies on either edge of a giant open field battlefield, Nilfgaard and Sintra. And we see this big old battle happening. We witness the death of Calanthe's husband, Ice Tirsa.
He gets shot right in the eye with an arrow.
Yeah, and it's not looking good. Nilfgaard looks like they're winning this fight, putting Sintra at the retreat. And we cut to Ciri, who's waiting in the castle very impatiently. And she gets told the story from Mousak, the druid, about the girls that were born during the eclipse, the curse of the Black Sun, and how they were locked in towers and studied and analyzed and killed, basically trying to, I guess I'm not entirely sure what the lesson in part here was. Like maybe something to just catch her time, or, a scare or something a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we see Ciri walking the halls still impatiently. And this is a detail that I wanted to point out because I didn't notice this ever before. There's a lady in a room and she's praying to something. And I never thought about it. I think she might be praying to the eternal fire, which is the main religion in the Witcher series. If you played the games, you know all about, the Church of the Eternal Fire. And she's just like praying to like some candles on a candelabra or whatever. So I think she might have been praying to the Eternal Fire. Yeah. And that was something I noticed that I hadn't before.
Yeah. And all of these guests that were invited to the party are now locked into the tower because they know that the town is under siege and that they're all going to be in danger.
Yeah. So Ciri keeps walking past doors. People are like bowing to her, and she finally sees her grandmother, Calanthe, is not looking too hot.
Right. Now, pause real quick, because there's one thing I really wanted to note about Ciri's character in this. As she walks down the hallway, the actress does a really good job of her physical mood is very aloof. It's not aloof. It's very aggressive. She doesn't walk like a princess down a hallway. She walks like she's like an angsty teenager.
It's like a bored kid. Like she's like kicking her feet a little bit and everything. She's kind of like swinging her arms.
She's walking like she's just like,
she doesn't care about appearances, I think.
Right.
And it's contrasted by her walking down the hall, and every door she passes with guests, they're literally turning, looking at her and bowing and saying, how are you, princess?
Right. And then she has to then she kind of straightens up a little bit and looks at them and kind of bows and does her courtly manner. And then once she leaves, she's kind of like, she goes back into teenager mode, She definitely seems more comfortable being like not being a princess, just being a regular kid. Right.
So, So then she finds her grandmother and some of the guards in a room. She's been like grievously injured, like stabbed in the stomach or something. And it looks like she's not doing too well. And we get a little scene where they're just kind of crying together. And Mousak, we see outside, Nilfgaard has made it to the city. They are setting it on fire. They're attacking people, killing people in the streets. And Mousak creates this barrier around the castle of just like energy. And Nilfgaard can't get through it. They just bounce off.
Yeah, it's a big shield. And that's it's pretty badass,
Yeah,
having a court wizard is pretty freaking cool. But he basically answers the question that Ciri asks, how long will that hold? And he says, as long as I will hold, princess. And that means not forever.
Although I will say it's a pretty long time.
Yeah. So he does his best.
We get back to the quiet forest. Geralt is telling the story of encountering his first monster to Roach.
Which is a classic story. You've probably heard it here before, but I'm going to tell you again
about how when he first left Kaer Morhen, he came across some thugs or this big, bald, ugly man trying to rape a girl. And he slew the guy and he expected the girl to be thankful. But she looked at him, screamed, vomited, and passed out from fear of Geralt.
Right.
Because he was covered in blood and parts from slaying the dude.
Because of how violently he slayed the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just freaked her out.
And so he tells Roach, Witcher, Vesemir would tell me, Witchers aren't white knights. You shouldn't expect gratitude. We're just paid to kill monsters.
And I love the scene because it's another insight into his character. Not only the story that he's telling, but the fact that he's like talking to his horse.
It's he doesn't have a lot of friends, so he talks to his horse.
Right. Like he and Roach are buddies. Like he and Roach are just like hanging out by the stream, and he's like feeding his horse, brushing his horse, like taking good care of his buddy Roach. And they're just talking because they're alone out in the woods. But of course they're not alone because Renfri's creeping up, listening to the conversation.
He's creeping up behind a tree. Right. And she even calls out, like, who are you even talking to? So it shows that it's not exactly common practice to talk to your horse, but Geralt, he doesn't have a lot of friends. He's got to do what he's got to do.
You would talk. I talk to my dogs. Like you talk to your animals. Like you would talk to Roach. Like, if you had a freaking Roach as your horse, you would talk to him. Come on.
So Renfri, she comes up and she tells Geralt, I'm going to do what you said I should do, and I'm going to leave in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then she starts telling this story about how her mom used to comb her hair and is making it as kind of a pass to, grab or touch Geralt's leg. Right. And of course, we know that Geralt
likes the ladies, and he saw that as a clear sign of like, hey, baby. And so, of course, Geralt went in for it. And
so they smash. And then it goes back to Nilfgaard. The Nilfgaardians had broken into the castle and are just brutally slaughtering people. We see a lot of really violent deaths. And Calanthe tells her guards, you got to get Ciri out of here. Like, I'm not going to make it, but she's important. She's the lion cub of Sintra. She's got to go. And Ciri is not happy about this at all.
No. And we learned something about Nilfgaard in this too, in that they don't take prisoners. We learned that they are very violent. They murder and kill everyone. They do not take prisoners. And we get a sense of like the kind of conquestors that they are.
That's the right word.
Yeah, I almost said conquistadors, but that's not that's different. That's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing. So, and it's at this moment in her clear outrage and anger and upsetness that we see Ciri do something a little strange. She kind of lets out this scream. They put a little bit of an audio effect on it, so it kind of reverberates, and this glass on the table moves and kind of shakes. And everyone looks at it. They're like,
right.
Okay.
And especially her grandmother and Musak kind of eye each other in this knowing way that like the two of them have discussed this before. And this is the sense is that this is confirmation that the thing they thought might be true is true.
Yeah. And then we get one of those big lines in the whole show. Geralt of Rivia. He is your destiny.
Right. And so from this point on, they usher her out of the keep. They get her out of the place. Everybody else gets murdered, or they take the poison and they kill themselves because they know what's going to happen to them if the soldiers capture them. And
I think this is for another reason too. I think Calanthe did it specifically. Like, obviously they had the plan in place because it was very easy to like convince people, but also I think the fact of like, you need to do this so that Nilfgaard can't get any answers out of you. Yes. Because if they're slaughtering everyone in the streets, which is, nobody in the streets is going to know too much about the Princess Cirilla, right? But the people in the castle would. So they're like, okay, we don't want anybody to know anything about her. So they're running off. Calanthe jumps out of a window, commits suicide. And Ciri's racing down. Mousak stays back to try and, guard them. They're racing down the thing. And then we see our first look at Kair up close, the Nilfgaardian Knight with the raven feathers.
Feather plume guy.
And he puts an arrow right into the knight's throat who's trying to protect Ciri, and they fall off the horse.
Dude is like a master bowman.
So then we get back to Geralt. He's having kind of a dream, kind of not. It shows Renfri kind of giving this prophecy about the girl in the woods. You can't escape her. And he like freaks out, wakes up, and he realizes that she's gone, but she definitely didn't leave town. She's going to do something bad.
Right. And he goes, oh, basically swears and heads to town. He knows. He's like, oh, she's going to, oh. And then he ends up in a situation where he has to make a hard choice. Basically,
kill all her men. We see the coolest fight scene. He's like, one of the coolest fight scenes I've ever seen.
I'm sure he's thinking like, I have to stop her. And of course he ends up cornered with all these guys and he knows he can't get out of that situation. And he's like, where's Renfri? And they're like, all right, Witcher, you got, you know, blah, 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 blah.
Gotta pick the lesser evil. You gotta pick
the lesser evil, Witcher. And then, of course, little do they know that they're just like gonna get it. And of course they get it real good.
The first time we're ever going to see the theme in the entire, like in Witcher, where everyone seems to think that they can just take a Witcher easily. And it's like, you're stupid. You're going to die.
You guys are idiots.
So, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he cuts through all these guys easily. I might add, we see a little bit of sign usage, first sign usage, and he cuts down all of them easily. And then he has to face Renfri.
And Renfri gives him a run for his money.
Yeah, she is a really talented swordswoman, and yeah, she does a lot. She gets some hits on him.
And it's confirmed that she's a mutant. 1, his magic doesn't work on her. 2, she keeps up with him in a duel, which means that not only is she a talented swordsperson, but she must be moving faster than most humans.
Yeah. So, you know, they fight it out. Geralt wins still, and is forced to kill her, which he's very upset about. Then we get back to Ciri, who's being rushed out of there on horseback, on the back of a horse. She wakes up and she does her scream thing again, except this time it's a lot more impactful. It basically shatters Kair's eardrums. He's freaking out. The horse is freaking out. She runs away, and then she does it again and causes this watchtower or rocky spire or something to completely break off, collapse, fall to the ground, and then create this massive crevice.
Yeah, the earth just kind of splits, and
then she runs off into the woods.
Yep.
And then the last part of the episode, we come back to Geralt. Stregobor's trying to pull Renfri's body back to his tower so that he can autopsy her. And Geralt puts a sword to his throat and says, "Do not touch her." And Stregobor manages to basically sway the crowd against him, convince him that he's, you know, he is what people say he is. And they start throwing rocks at him,
which of course it hits him right where he hates the most, because he's trying, he didn't want to have to kill her. He didn't want to have to fight those people. He was just trying to stop her from doing something bad. And here is Stregobor turning it into the opposite thing. He just saved Stregobor's life, and Stregobor's now turning the crowd against him. And
so he kneels down, he pulls off the brooch. And then the real hard part is that Marilka, saved her life. He saved her life directly. And she tells him, leave Blaviken, never come back. And you can see the hurt on his face really kills you in that moment, because it's like he expects people to think he's evil, but whenever, like with her, because they were friends, kind of, like she was excited to meet him.
And he saved her life. She was going to be killed.
And it's just painful. So he leaves Renfri's brooch in hand. And that's the story of how Geralt became the Butcher of Blaviken. One of many names that he has.
I think it was a great first episode. I think that it summed up so many things very concisely, gave us a lot of insight into who Geralt is. Gave us all of the characters are tragic in some way, except for creepy wizard guy. Stregobor. I think we get a sense of like, no, there's more going on with him than we know. Sorry, I've got dogs barking in the background because my wife just got home. But even Renfri is tragic. Like, she didn't ask to be hunted down. She didn't ask to be born under.
And she doesn't feel different. That's one of the things she says, is that she does everything like a human. like she doesn't feel like she's not human because she does everything the same, but she's treated as if she's a monster.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's tragic. Nilfgaard is attacking these people, and they're not they weren't doing anything wrong, and they all get murdered for it. It's a tragic episode, and it just shows you how dark the world is. And even when everybody's just trying to go about their lives, trying to do normal or good things in some cases, where Geralt is actually just trying to do, he's trying to, like, he's just talking to Roach, and talking about how Vesemir tells him not to be a white knight. And then in the next scene, he wakes up and rushes off to try to stop her from doing something bad, like,
which is, by the way, they don't do it as great in the episode as they do in the book, but basically it's Renfri's like going to kill every person, like one person at a time in the town until Stregobor comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was her goal, just to murder the entire town.
Right. And she could have.
Yeah, she would have if Geralt hadn't done anything. Stregobor would have never come out of his tower. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the people. He's an asshole. So
yeah. So great episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Of course, you can log into the Robots Radio Discord and let us know on the Witcher Lorecast channel. Or, just send us your thoughts on Twitter. We're going to take a break here in the middle to thank our patrons, and we'll be back for the second half where we're going to talk about episode 2. So stay tuned.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, this is the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons, all 9 of our patrons. We have 9 patrons now. And thank you to all of you guys, because you help keep this show going. You help me and Toasty do this every week. We have 4 lessons currently, which is super awesome. So thank you to all of you guys, and everyone from our ghouls all the way up to our lessons. You guys are amazing. Thank you so very much. And if this show has helped you get through your workday, your commute to work, your workout, or
washing your horse,
or washing and talking to your horse, if that's something that you do while listening to podcasts, then please go check out patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast and see if there's anything there that you would like to get as a reward or a tier that you'd like to support. We'd love to have your support, and we'd love to give you stuff as well, including ad-free episodes and extra bonus content that shows up on episodes when Toasty and I hang out before or after the episode, talking, joking around, or answering questions that show up in the live chat. And, just go check it out, because there's all sorts of good stuff over there. And, Toasty, I've been thinking about, this is something I've added to the other Lorecast shows that I do, but
we're going to talk about t-shirts now?
Thinking about maybe adding some t-shirts. I need to come up with some cool designs, though. This takes a little while, but it would be really cool to add t-shirts to the tier 4 and higher tiers.
I think my first idea is, how each school has their own like Witcher medallion, has like cool. If we could find someone or something to do a really sick like design of like a school of robots, like Witcher medallion, and put it on a t-shirt, I think that'd be really cool.
The school of robots.
That'd be really cool.
Here's what I want to do, because the way this works on Patreon is that you set up basically it's a reward you get for sticking around and being at a certain tier for a length of time. So, for example, somebody who signs up as a tier 4 and sticks around for 3 months would get a t-shirt. 3 more months, you get another t-shirt. 3 more months, you get another t-shirt. So you would have a series of, say, 4 t-shirts that you get within a year. And then those shirts go away, and then you get the next series for the next year. So if we had like Witcher schools for 1 year, where you'd have like a wolf, a bear, a griffin, and go through those series.
That'd be cool. That would be cool.
We could do something like that, right? So I have to come up with designs, and most of these I design myself. So I've got to come up with stuff that makes sense. And the idea here would be, it would be really cool to let people know this is coming, so that they can get in on it right at the beginning, so they can get the whole collection of shirts. And traditionally with the other Patreons also, if you sign up at the tier 3, you don't get the t-shirts, but you can get stickers. So if you can't afford tier 4, or you don't want to support a tier 4, but you want to support on tier 3, then at least you can get sticker versions of these designs. So you can put them, say, like on your laptop or on your car, or wherever you want to put your stickers, right? So I'll be working on that. I don't think this is something that I'm going to be able to finish up in the next week or two, but hopefully by the end of the year, if I can get that figured out, designed, and have ready for you guys, then we'll let you know. So got that kind of, spinning in my head. Want to make sure that I've got some stuff that's going to make sense for you guys and will be awesome and will be ready for you. And, something that you absolutely want. But when we do roll this out, it's not going to change the prices of the tiers at all. It'll just be extra stuff you get on top for no extra charge. And people who are currently already supporting at those tiers will already be signed up and ready to start getting those as soon as they're ready to go out. So there you go. All right. Well, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
So that little clip there comes from episode 2, which we're going to talk about here. So that's a lot of fun. So here we go to episode 2, 4 marks. And this episode is the first time we get to glimpse Yennefer, because at the beginning of the episode, we've got these two farm folks kind of flirting, handing each other flowers and stuff, getting kind of smoochy at this barn. And Yennefer happens to be in the barn, and they get mad at her, and she gets scared. And all of a sudden, poof, she's gone. And she's now somewhere else. She's in the tower.
She's in the tower of the goal.
Yeah.
And this is where Yennefer meets Istrid.
Yeah, this handsome young man is there. And she's
very handsome.
Yeah. This young Yennefer with her poor little deformed face and little hunch on her back.
Twisted spine.
That's and
she has.
Yeah, and you can tell those children or other teenagers are making fun of her. You can tell that she's just living this terrible life, doesn't have any friends. And all of a sudden she's in this tower with this handsome boy who's very curious about her and was like, how did you get here? Who are you?
Are you a virgin? Just casual questions you ask people when you first meet them, right?
Right.
Everyone asks that.
Of course.
When she slaps him.
That's what I say when I meet somebody new. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Tom. Are you a virgin? I think he
deserves that slap. I don't think you should just go around asking that question. But he's asking this, and then he's like, he realizes, oh, she just did this portal, but like she doesn't know anything about magic. Well, she's going to come looking for you then. Very ominous she. And he does a little magic spell, bites a flower, says some words, and opens up a portal, which you can actually see, and tells her, my name is Istrid. And then she just runs through it.
Right. Like, this is a different kind of portal. You'll be safe. And she's like, cool. Okay, bye. And just like, who are you? Gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So then we get to Yennefer's home life. She's trying to feed some pigs. Get some fancy lady who's driving up in a wagon.
I love the scene where she's like trying to get the door, and she's like, "No, I got it," and then she falls down and like spills all the slop on herself. Like the actress is so good. Like the actress who plays Yen is so good in the series.
Anya Shalotra.
She's so good because her range is incredible because she goes all the way from pig girl and just like falling down and like spilling stuff on her body. And it just looks like the expression on her face when she falls down is just like, like she looks like the klutziest, like poor pig girl. Like she is like, that feeling when you watch a show and somebody's like in character makeup and you can tell that they're like actually an attractive person who's coordinated and physically fit, and they're just playing the part of somebody who's unattractive and out of shape or whatever. You know that feeling? And you're just like, come on, they're in old people makeup or they're in ugly makeup. Like, she plays this part so well. And then when she is like totally like put together, sorceress Yennefer, like powerful sorceress, like beautiful.
Tom, you're getting a little ahead of yourself there.
I know we're not there yet, but that's just my point for the actress is that like that range between like extremely powerful, beautiful sorceress and pig girl and everything in between. She's like she can do all of that. And I think that's just amazing.
Yeah. So, as I was saying before, this really fancily dressed lady looks real nice. So arrives with like a carriage with horses, and she's like, I want to buy a pig. How much for a pig? Yeah. 10 marks. And how much for this beast is the word she used to refer to pig girl Yennefer. Ooh. And her dad he says 6, and the lady retaliates with 4. and he agrees on 4
immediately.
So
fine, sold.
We're seeing just how much value her dad puts in her, because he values pig tint marks. So this animal, they're really small, by the way. You can see them in this. They're not big pigs. They're tiny pigs. Then he puts far, not like less than half value.
And you can tell he also claims that she's not his daughter. Like, she, like, that's her mother, but he's like, she's not mine. 4 marks.
But we don't know at this point, like, you know, it just seems like he says it in a sense of like, you know, that's just, he's so ashamed of the daughter he has with twisted spine that he doesn't consider. He's like, I don't want to be the father of this.
Right. I'll disown her. It's fine.
Yeah. That's the impression we get. And it's really like sad and upsetting. And Yen tries to stay, and, you know, then we get a flash to her being locked in a room. And she's banging on the door. She's very upset. She punches a mirror. And looks at the pieces, and then proceeds to cut her own wrists.
The thing I notice here is she looks at the mirror very intently before she punches it. I think this is probably the first time she's ever seen a mirror, because she comes from a very poor family, and in these kinds of environments, most people probably never owned a mirror. Now, she might have seen her reflection in a pool of water or something, but I think this is probably the first time she's ever seen a mirror. And
we know that she definitely feels like not wanted at this point. She says, you know, 4 marks, like, you know, that's how much I cost. Right. And she's just very upset. She's very down on herself, and she can't see anything like going up for her. So she just tries to end it.
Right.
So then it cuts from this scene to Ciri, who's running through the woods. We get to see kind of like how resourceful she is in this sense, because she finds a pool of mud, and she proceeds to cover her very bright, like, you know, pristine,
very blonde hair,
white hair, with mud to disguise herself, which is like a really smart move in this situation. So she does that, and then you can tell she's very cold. She's hungry. She finds a berry bush. She tries to eat the berries, and then she gets spooked by this guy hiding in the bushes, telling her, you know, don't eat those. They're poisonous berries.
It turns out that he's helping her out. They become friends. They walk together, and then, you know, she shares a glove with him. They become buddies. They help each other stay warm, and then they come across a camp. She sees Cintran flags in the distance, and she's like, okay, we're saved. And she proceeds to run off, and then turns around, and he's gone. He's not there anymore. Where did he go? Why didn't he go into the camp? We don't know, but she's now with some people that she thinks are going to be good Cintrans who will help take care of her. So then we move from this into you know, a beautiful voice singing a lovely tune as we meet Jaskier for the first time in this hilarious scene. He sings this beautiful song and then gets basically booed off stage. People don't seem to be wanting to listen to that. He just tells them off, and then he sees a mysterious individual in the corner who ends up being Geralt. And it seems to take a liking to him. Like immediately. Like, you're the only one who didn't give me your impressions of what I was saying, or like your what he says. Your rating of my singing, or something like that. There's a phrase similar to that.
And so he seems to he's taking a liking or an interest to this aloof man in the corner, who ends up being a Witcher. And Geralt's just like, you're annoying, please leave me alone, and tries to leave the bar. To which he then gets a job. One of the locals tells him about a devil who's been harassing them and stealing their food. And Geralt says he'll take the job and proceeds on. And Jaskier's like, I'm coming with you.
I love how bold he is. This is one of the things I love about Dandelion is that he's just, in some ways, he's fearless. He's kind of a fearless idiot. Like, it's hard to say that he's brave, so much as
he's pretty okay. So
is he brave or is he just an idiot?
So
it's kind of
the show is never going to show you a good impression of how his personality is, because the thing is whenever you're reading the books, you get that perspective of like them thinking in their mind and their actions at the same time. Dandelion is always thinking about how absolutely stupid it would be to do something that he's going to do.
Yes.
How terrified he is of doing it. And yet he always pulls through anyways.
Right. Yeah. He's resourceful.
Yeah.
He's extremely lucky. And sometimes he's actually very clever in knowing that the thing he's going to do would make like a really great song or turn into a really wonderful story. So like he's actually very like he has a good keen business sense.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm hoping next season we'll get to see more kind of in-depth look at him, because, you know, you really get to see him. The impression you get from the show is that he's just an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's really not.
Right.
So,
but the fact that like he will throw himself into danger feels idiotic. It's like,
which it probably is.
It's
for
like
him.
It's like he doesn't realize how dangerous it actually is the idiotic part about it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in that. But anyway, we move on to Yennefer, back to Yennefer. Right.
She's getting her first lesson in chaos and how to manipulate it.
This is the whole scene where they're supposed to lift the rock, and then what's her face? Fringilla is the first one to do it, but she doesn't realize at that point that she's supposed to draw energy out of the flower. So the energy ends up coming out of her hand, which withers her hand. It's all
shriveled up and withers her hand. Like it takes its toll from her hand.
Yeah.
And then Tisaya, this is the point when she tells everyone, hey, like you're supposed to take the energy from something else and channel it. So she shows, use the flower withers, and then she lifts the stone. This is also the beginning where we see that Sabrina is like the most naturally gifted sorceress of the entire group, because she will always ace everything in this entire episode. We get that Yennefer, of course, can't do it.
Right.
She's trying so hard. She even she gives a little bit of I think like suspicion to Saya, because she takes a bite out of the flower. Yeah. She saw Istrid do it when he did the portal. And so she's trying to copy him in order to do it. And Tisaya is like, how would you know to do that? Like, she's looking at her real suspicious, like, why would you think to do that?
Right.
It's a very specific thing. So she can't do it. Then we move on. Yennefer's found her way back into the Tower of the Gull and runs back into Istrid. And tells him her name, and that's about it that you get from the scene.
We see them starting to bond
a little bit. Like this part, it's just like, I found you again. I'm Yennefer, by the way. And he's like, it's nice to finally meet you, Yennefer. And then it cuts away to Ciri in the refugee camp, the Cintran refugee camp. That's what I'm going to refer to it. And she tries to cut in line, get some soup, because she's used to getting her way. Like, even though she doesn't feel comfortable, it's still the life she knows. Right. So she's used to, like, I'm the one that's going to get the soup first. People are like, we don't know you. Get in line, wait your turn.
Right. And she's like, wait a minute. What? Huh?
And she even like, this is provided by the queen. And the person's like, screw the queen. May she rot in hell. Yeah. Which is like, what? Wait, what? These are Cintrans saying that about our queen? What the hell? Right. And she meets a young man and learns about Filavandrel's uprising. And like this dude has a necklace with elf ears on it. He claims to have killed every single one of them himself. Right. And it's like, okay, that's really not cool.
Yeah, this is her, like, I don't know. I don't know the best way to phrase this. This is her, like, I don't know, shotgun lesson in the world is dark and dangerous, and there's a lot more going on out here than you may have realized. And people hate each other for all sorts of historical reasons, including people who come from different backgrounds and different races and things, these kinds of things.
Yeah. And so he takes her to meet his family. They're going to help take care of her. And she, meets them. They have a little, like, I think he's a halfling
I think he's a dwarf.
Gnome?
I think he's a dwarf. Yeah, because the dwarves in the series are little people. I mean, they're all cast as little people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But you have some sort of, I thought maybe because he doesn't quite have the same kind of appearance as the other dwarves. They're a bit more stockier. Yeah. But it might be. But they meet and they treat this dude like absolute crap.
Yeah. And you can see it in his eyes. He's just like,
and she's like trying to figure it out. Like, okay, this is really weird. And then this lady also talks about how, the queen, screwed everything up. This is her fault. The whole Nilfgaard thing is her fault. And Ciri's trying to have to come to terms with the fact that, like, okay, everyone hates my grandmother for some reason. Yeah. They're blaming all of this happening on my grandmother.
Right.
And then we go back to Jaskier and Geralt, who are walking down the street. We get this quote.
The quote that we use on the show. Right. I love that this situation here is Jaskier coming up on Geralt and saying, like, hey, I can come with you, right? La, la, la. And Geralt punches him in the stomach.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I got to tell you something. What? Pop!
Boom! Right in the gut.
But, and we get here, this is Jaskier sees what, like, the Witcher, like what everyone thinks of the Witcher, and he wants to improve his image. Yeah. Like, he's talking about how he wants to make people see him better than they do. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really interesting because it's like, why would this dude have such an interest in, like, trying to improve Geralt's image? Like, he doesn't know him. He doesn't know anything about him.
I think what he does, I think Jaskier actually sees through Geralt's hard exterior a little bit. I think that's part of what's going on here, is that he's actually seeing through him. Like, he sees that he's just kind of
he's really good with people. That's his job.
He is. I think he sees that he's kind of pushing people away, but that he's not actually a bad guy.
Mm-hmm. So they finally wander into this field, and they get some metal balls whisked at their foreheads. Jaskier's trying to be all poetic and gets knocked out by one of these metal balls. And then Geralt gets charged by this goat man. Like, it's a dude. He's got horns. He charges him. They get into a fight, calling each other ugly and stuff. Really childish.
Right. I love the banter back and forth.
It's really great. Right. And it's so funny, but he tells him, he's like, I'm a Sylvan. And then he's like, basically Geralt's like, you're intelligent. I don't want to kill you, but you can't stay here. Right. And the Sylvan says, you can't either. And then Geralt, like, turns around and gets completely, like, ambushed, and gets hit in the face and gets knocked out. Which then we go back to Yennefer getting another lesson in thought transference, which is basically telepathy. So they're all sitting, staring at their partners, and trying to read each other's thoughts. And you can tell that Yennefer is having a hard time with her partner Annika, who it doesn't show this. It's been weeks. They later on they verified this has been weeks since, like, the first lesson, and it seems like Annika is trying to, like, root for her. She's trying to give her, like, encouragement and support, like, you can do this, I believe in you, which Yennefer's never gotten that before, so it's kind of touching. Yeah. But Yennefer gets so frustrated she can't do it, and she finally lies about it. Right. Like, it shows a passage of time because it's daytime when they start. It's very much nighttime whenever they finally get to it. She finally gets fed up and she says, Annika is afraid of snakes. That's her biggest fear. And Tisaya is like, yeah, you're full of shit. Yeah, you did not pick that up at all. Right. Do not lie to me. Right. And she's not having it. So then we get back to Istrid and Yennefer. Yennefer is kind of feeling down on herself. She can't do anything. She's been here for weeks and has managed to accomplish nothing. And Istrid is trying to comfort her and then helps her by, like, letting her read him, like, his thoughts. And we see here, he gives, she finally does it. She she accomplishes it, reads his thoughts, and he gives her very specific items of like moon, jellyfish, cicadas in summer, the sound of cicadas, and the taste of warm bread. And she's like, these are your favorite things. And he's like, no, these are things that I thought you would like.
Right.
And that's, you start to see that kind of romantic thing kind of blossoming between them, where it's like
she feels like he's being nice to her, and that's something that she's not used to. And do you think that the reason that things are working for her with him is because she feels comfortable with him and she doesn't feel comfortable with the others? Because we come to learn that so much of what she's capable of has a lot to do with her emotions. It's tied to her feelings. And when she's with the other girls and, you know, in those classroom settings, she's very intimidated. She's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I probably, I think had the aspect in this situation where you can like be comfortable in a situation and try to approach things your way rather than, because I'm sure it's terrifying. Tisaya is a very like disturbing individual. Can you imagine having her just standing behind you? Oh yeah. Assessing you at all moments, because that's basically what's happening anytime she's having a lesson. Like, I personally love Tisaya. I think she's great. You know, this episode really shows one facet of her, but it's not actually kind of her at all, but it's still like very unnerving to have her looking at you. And the fact that she's a perfectionist that doesn't get translated in the show at all, but like in the books, she's very much perfectionist. She's kind of OCD
and extremely powerful. Like, these girls are trying to become, you know, very powerful sorceresses, and this teacher and woman in front of them is powerful beyond anything that they've ever seen or imagined. It's got to be daunting.
Yeah. And it's also in this scene with Istrid where we also hear about Banard for the first time, which is where men go to learn the magic. So Aretuza's for women, Banard's for men, or sorcerers. And so then we get to a little scene where Ciri's lying awake on a cot next to this lady who's taken her in. She can't sleep. The other lady can't sleep, and they talk a little bit. And the lady's asking, you know, where's your parents? And Ciri tells, my parents have been dead since I was little. And so I've been raised by my grandmother ever since. And the lady's like, well, where's your grandmother? Also dead. She's kind of coming to the terms with the fact that like, she doesn't really have anyone left now. Yeah. And so it's a little scene there. Right. And then we get back to Aretuza, and they are trying to catch lightning in a bottle, which is insane.
Right. I love the daunting quality of this task.
Yeah. So, and we see that it is in fact daunting as the first person steps up and just gets completely struck by lightning. I thought she died. Apparently she didn't. But she still gets like knocked out and is very injured. And then Annika steps up, catches the lightning, and then the bottle explodes in her face as she's looking at it in wonder. So that completely messes her up. And then it's Yennefer's turn, and Yennefer tries it. Instead of catching the lightning in the bottle, she catches the lightning in herself.
Yes.
The graphics very much put a point to the fact that the lightning goes inside her.
Right.
And she gets knocked against the wall. And obviously Tisaya is not impressed. And so she tells Sabrina to step up, good old Sabrina again, to step up, show them how it's done. And Sabrina does it flawlessly because that's just how Sabrina is. And Yennefer gets real upset, and she channels this lightning out of her towards Tisaya. So she's basically shoots a lightning arc at her.
Yeah.
And Tisaya just immediately grabs it and just thrusts it back in the air. Just super quick, finessed, perfect. And it's like, oh, wait, Yennefer did something though. That's like the big part of the scene. That's magic. You don't just throw lightning around without being magic.
And I feel like this is typical Yennefer. Like, she will take the situation and the thing that you expect to happen and do the thing her way. Right. Like, you catch the lightning in the bottle. No, she's going to catch the lightning in her freaking self and then channel it back out. You know, like, that's the way Yennefer is going to do it. You know?
So this happens, and then they're leaving. Tisaya has a little talk with Yennefer, basically telling her, you ain't cutting it. So it's like, in Yennefer's, obviously she's already struggling enough as is with trying to feel like she's accomplishing something. Mm-hmm. So of course she's feeling real down on herself. She'll do anything at this point to try and get a leg up. And then we leave this, go back to Geralt and Jaskier. We're tied up and getting beaten up by elves.
Yeah.
And we meet Filavandrel for the first time.
Yeah.
And they have this whole kind of scene of Filavandrel telling us about the Great Cleansing, which was an event where thousands of elves were killed and pushed off of their land. And Geralt's telling them, one, he figures out, the Sylvans stealing food to give to the elves so that they don't starve. And Geralt's telling them, okay, you can fight back against the humans, but you're not going to succeed. You already failed before, and now there's far less of you. You're not going to succeed. You're going about this the wrong way. But if you want to expedite your own suicide, go ahead.
Right.
And
so why don't you just go somewhere else? Go
somewhere else.
Go claim some other lands. Go find somewhere else to live.
Yeah. And this is another thing the episode doesn't do great at showing, because this, in the book, this section is titled Dol Blathanna, which is a sacred land to the elves, the land of, it's like the land of flowers or something. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be this beautiful area, like flowers everywhere. It's very sacred to the elves. Kind of like their homeland. So they're very protective of it. And they don't really do much of a point to show that in the episode, but I just wanted to, get that across there.
That's why they care about it so much.
So, and Geralt basically tells them, hey, because they're treating him like he's a human, like he belongs to the humans. The girl's like, I don't belong to the humans. Mm-hmm. They treat me just as bad, if not worse than you. I am not human. I understand your plight in this situation.
Right. And the Sylvan stands up for him and says, he's right. He is
could
different.
Have killed me,
he
but
could have
he
killed
wasn't
me.
Going to.
Right. He is different. He is not human. He is different.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's a big part of it is Geralt, he's not human, and people assume because he looks like one, but
right.
Humans don't treat him like a human. They treat him like a witcher,
right? Like
a monster. So then we come back from that. I think this is the point. Filavandrel, they're like, it looks like he's going to kill him. And then he cuts the rope, lets him go. Mm-hmm. Then we go back to the Tower of the Gull, where Istrid is telling us about how the elves built Aretuza.
Right.
And whenever the conjunction of the spheres happened, these things weren't here, and everything came together at the conjunction of the spheres, including magic and elves.
And that's when the men showed up, and that's when the monsters showed up.
Right. And that the elves taught humans how to control chaos and manipulate it. And in return, the humans slaughtered them.
Right.
Slaughtered
and pretended that they had it all along.
Mm-hmm. And this was the Great Cleansing, where they slaughtered a whole bunch of elves, and it was terrible. And Yennefer is trying to, figure out how to do this portal thing. And Istrid finally kind of gives into it, teaches her how. We find out that the flower is Fainwed, which grows only in places where blood is spilt.
The blood of elves.
Yes, and it's very oof. And Yin gets really emotional here and tells that her father was a half elf, and that he died in the Great Cleansing, and that his blood is why she has twisted spine.
Or at least that's why she believes she has twisted spine.
Yeah, fair enough. She believes that. And we finally get the kiss that has been waiting to happen here, where they kind of, come together. Yin finally feels like someone actually wants her around. And then we cut away to Yin in Tisaya's office, telling her how to make this portal that Istrid told her about, because she was spying for Tisaya the entire time. which is even funnier because then we cut to Istrid with Stregobor at Banard. Because he was spying for Banard.
Right.
So it's just this crazy thing where they're both spying on each other. So, Yennefer tells Tissaia how to do the portal. And Istrid tells Stregobor that she was part elf. And then we move away from that to the refugee camp on fire, being attacked by Nilfgaardians. The lady's trying to flee. She gives a bag to the guy.
The dwarf guy.
The dwarf
yells
guy
at him,
poorly,
and then he stabs her. Yeah.
Yeah, and she slaps him across the face. He's had enough, and he proceeds to just stab her to death. Ciri's freaking out.
Yeah.
And then she gets a hole, like a long line cut in the tent behind her, and starts freaking out because she gets pulled out, but it's actually just Rat Boy, as she referred to him.
Her buddy from the woods.
He came to get her, to save her. They run away. And then we come back to Yennefer in a room. She hears...
She was told to wait for the knocks.
She was told to wait for the knock.
Right.
And Tissaia, you can hear Tissaia going to different rooms, knocking on the door and pulling people out, which is the part where she says the name of the chick that was struck by lightning that I thought died, that wasn't. So that confirmed that.
Right.
And Yennefer, she's upset because she didn't get a knock on her door. So she follows to figure out what's going on. And we see Tissaia turning these girls into eels.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? And apparently this is the actual definition of ascending in Aretuza, is that basically if you can't cut it, because these were the weaker people, I feel like, in the situation. They weren't as good because Fringilla and Sabrina are not part of this group, and they were the really most talented ones. You get turned into an eel and cast into this giant pool and become a conduit for Aretuza's magical source.
Right. And the sense I got was that they are actually even using your body, your magic, your ability to wield magic as a conduit, but also as a source for magic itself. Yeah.
So we learned that, the magic has to come from somewhere. Like, you have to draw from a source. It's just this giant pool of magic that you can draw from. It makes it easier for them to do their lessons, where you, like, after you learn how to kind of properly channel from sources, I feel like that comes in the part where it's like, okay, well, we have this basically infinite supply of magic here for learning and experimenting purposes. So that's where you draw your magic from. So you don't have to constantly worry about, because there's not a whole lot of life around. It's a very rocky area on the coast of a, rocky shore. So it's not exactly teeming with grass or trees or anything that you can draw from.
Right.
So, and then we come back to Jaskier and Geralt on the road. And Jaskier composes perhaps a tune that you've heard for anyone who's interested in The Witcher, the Toss a Coin to Your Witcher tune.
Yep.
And he starts doing that. We get a little bit of scene of Yennefer pushing the eels into the pool of energy, Ciri drinking from water, then finding out that Rat Boy is actually an elf. And he tells her his name is Dara. And then we come back, and obviously Jaskier is using a little bit of creative freedom on this tune. And we come back and Geralt's asking, where's your respect for what actually, that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
Where's your respect for them?
Yeah.
And Jaskier hits us with, I never even thought about this line before. I'm gonna be straight honest. I got caught up in the tune every single time. Jaskier says, respect doesn't make history.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is just a sad reality. I feel like
he is a marketing guy through and through.
Oh yeah. But it's I thought about it and was like, that's really that doesn't even just hit home for Witcher. That hits home for the world in general.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's you learn, the victors write history. That's a thing that people learn.
Yeah.
And most of the time the victors don't respect much about the other side at all.
It's skewed.
And it's
the truth is always skewed because the truth doesn't make the story that the victor wants to tell.
Yeah. And that's just, This is kind of sad, but that's the end. We go out on a banger with the with Toss a Coin to Your Witcher, and that's the end of that episode.
I love the song, but it also does not ring to me like a song that people in that world would sing. It's too modern sounding.
It's upbeat. I think people just like upbeat back then because he's trying to sing us.
Right, the melody. Toss a coin to your Witcher. Like that's such a modern tune. Like it doesn't sound like medievally at all. But that's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's a great song, right? Like I can forgive. Oh, Valley of Plenty. Yeah, like I can forgive it. I can forgive it that because it's such a fun song. But like every tune in the thing doesn't have to be like bum 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 like that's fine. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah. That's the end of that.
Yeah, man.
Episode 1 and 2.
Yeah. So for fun here, from a 1 to 10, let's rate each of these episodes.
Okay.
And let's just kind of keep it running, and maybe we can even write it in the show notes what we rate each one. So. Episode 1, Toasty, what do you rate it? And then what am I going to rate it? So here, what do you rate episode 1 on a scale of 1 to 10? Actually, let's do it this way.
I want to know yours. I want to know yours first.
How many monsters do you...
How many monsters? That's a little basic.
Okay, so we got to come up with a rating scale here. How many... What should we rate these with?
How many...
Bard loots.
Bard loots.
How many Witcher medallions?
How many Witcher? That's fine. That works.
All right. How many Witcher medallions would you give this one out of 10?
I want to know your answer
out
first.
Of 10 Witcher medallions. I would give episode 1. I think episode 1 gets like 9 medallions. Like there's really very little in episode 1 that I have any problems with.
I only because we don't get the whole story. Like it doesn't give us as much in the books. I'll probably also give it a 9. Other than that, I would give it a 10.
It's hard to give it everything.
It is hard to, but there's some important details I think people like you need to tell that they don't. But I really liked it. It definitely a 9 for me, almost a 10. It's really close.
Very, very good. It's concise. It keeps everything together. I'm sorry, the dogs are barking again. This is just the nature.
Badass fight scene.
You get a badass fight scene. You get a real good glimpse into who these characters are. It sets up the world really well.
The tragedy of the Witcher universe.
The tragedy of the Witcher universe. You even get to know who Roach is a little bit. Like you get a good sense of a lot of this stuff. I don't know why my dog is freaking barking so much. All right.
Sorry.
Episodes. I'm sorry, listeners. I can't help it. So episode 2, what would you give episode 2? Do I have to go first again, or?
It's lacking in more details than even 1, but it's still really good. I'll give this one an 8. I don't like it as much as I like the first episode, but I still think it's really good. And Yennefer's story, I think, is a very important thing. And you don't get that in the books. This is like a whole new thing. So,
yeah, you know what? I love the stuff with Yennefer. I like the stuff with Geralt and Dandelion, although it doesn't. I feel like this is more of a necessary episode to just kind of set future stuff up, and the stuff with Ciri is just kind of more necessary. It's all just kind of okay, but it's not super. I don't know. It feels like it's more filler for those two characters than it is some of the other stuff.
You probably could have gone without much of the serious stuff, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
I'm going
to give it a 7. I think
7.
I mean, we don't really get a great fight scene with Geralt. We don't really get like the action scenes in here are just kind of, it's missing a few of like the really, really good stuff. So I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay. I can see that. I just think Yennefer is such a like integral character here, and
she is
the origin story and seeing her go from, or the start of her going from like pig girl to stronger, more confident,
right
kind of thing.
I just wish we had more of that and less of some of this other stuff. Like I would have moved I would have, like, the same way we didn't get any Yen in the first episode, I would have been happy without any Ciri in this episode.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think we could have moved Ciri stuff to another episode.
I honestly couldn't remember any of, whenever I was going into it, I remembered all the Yennefer stuff, couldn't remember any of the other stuff.
Right.
So when Geralt showed up on screen, I was like, oh yeah, this is part of this episode too. I completely forgot about it. So I understand that one. That's fair.
Yeah. That's how I feel about this one, is that if you had moved some of the Ciri stuff out and just kept it like Geralt and Yennefer, then it would have been better. So yeah.
So, well, next week, we will be getting into episode 3, maybe 4, but episode 3 is a pretty hefty one, I think. So it might just be good to just do one and mesh some other episodes together.
Yeah, we're going to have to split another one of these shows into 2 episodes at some point. So we'll figure it out. But Toasty, you got anything else going on that you want to share before we head out?
Same old Twitter, Witcher Lorecast. Go listen to Avatar Legends Journey of the Elements, where I'm playing a firebender with the Fumbling 4 gang. And if you're interested in cyberpunk stuff, they're doing a new Patreon exclusive thing where we are doing, it is basically, we're in 2045 testing 2077. Like, we are video game testers. We're testing out 2077 and dealing with all the glitches that the people who were playing 2077 at the start had to deal with.
Oh, that's funny.
So we have a long list of like 100 different glitches that can happen. You roll percentile every time you do something, and some kind of glitch happens. And it is probably the most fun I've ever had playing a game in my life. It was so hilarious.
Oh, that's funny.
It was so good.
That's a fun idea.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. So where can they hear that?
That one's a Patreon exclusive, so you'd have to go support them. But if you really like me, maybe you'd want to do that.
All right. Well, you can go check that out if you want. And you guys know where my stuff is. All the shows are at robotsradio.net. And I am streaming in the mornings over at on the Robots Radio YouTube page. And I will be playing this week. I think I'm going to jump into the Forza Horizon 5 release. Comes out tomorrow morning. And I'm going to be doing that. But I will be getting back into Skyrim for the anniversary edition. And my community over there is going to be helping craft my character. And we'll be playing with some of the new content for Skyrim, jumping back into that game.
What new content is there?
There's some new stuff. Know. Yeah. There's some new stuff for the creative something, whatever the stuff is that they have in there that, some new mods and things.
Creation Club?
Yeah, some new Creation Club stuff.
You have to pay money for that, though. So
there's some of the stuff. So there's like 4 or 5 new things that come with Anniversary Edition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
They just come with a new edition. So there's some of that stuff. And then, of course, there's mods and things. I'm going to be testing some of the mods, seeing how they work with Anniversary Edition, some of the new stuff that's coming out for that. So it'll be fun.
We're also possibly in the talks of the return of the No Pants Pirates. I don't know. Look out for that.
We played today.
I was at the movies watching Eternals. Whenever I got out of the movie, I saw that it was an hour and a half later, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to make that one.
Yeah, we played today. We almost got to the island where we found where all the treasure was. We got to the island where we found where all the treasure was. Almost found the treasure trove. And then some other pirates rolled up on us and blew up our ship. And then we tried to save our ship, and then we got killed. And then we ran out of time.
Darn.
So yeah, it kind of went south at that point. So yeah, chat's asking questions. Where's my sexy Santa suit? Yeah, that's going to be in the morning streams, but there's going to be some requirements to get me to wear that on some future streams. So you're gonna have to tune in to find out what the requirements are for that. So yeah, that's what I got going on. But of course, there's all the other lorecasts and podcasts on the network, so you guys can tune into all that stuff. But that's what we got going on. Thank you for being here, everybody. Stay safe out there in the world of The Witcher, because
on the path.
That's what you say. That's what you say. That's your part. That's your part.
You can say it too. It doesn't matter.
You say that part. I talk about other weird stuff.
Okay, go ahead.
Be safe out there, because there's monsters and lurking.
Don't fall into the eel pool at Aratuza.
Don't fall into the eel pool.
Would not be good for you.
Yeah, and don't mess with people at the bar who are grumpy at you because you're a Witcher. Because you're just going to have to murder them, and then everyone's just going to get even grumpier. Yeah, that's no good.
true.
That's no good for anybody. So, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. See you later.
Stay safe on the path.
See, I told you that was your line. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.